Good to see everybody here again. Happy Mother's Day, and it's been so good to see these faces. I'm extra blessed. My mom and Tom are here visiting from Michigan, so it's super awesome. And so if we can welcome them too, it's good. I was messing with Tom saying, hey, all new visitors, we bring them up to the front and they have to say a few words. He says, if I get up, you'll know why. It's awesome. All right, so as you guys know, I like to have a little bit of interaction. And so what are your thoughts or emotions? So think back. For some of us, you have to think back a little further. What are our thoughts? What thoughts and emotions did you have as a child when you were given a gift? Maybe it's Christmas, maybe it's the anticipation, maybe it's that. What are some of the things those thoughts and emotions that you had? Excitement. Utter excitement. Super utter excitement. What else?
Disappointment if they were
No,
socks.
yeah. Disappointment with socks and as a kid. I remember that. Pajamas, okay, maybe, but socks, no way.
I used to think about how much thought was put into picking out that gift to give.
Oh, appreciation of thoughtfulness.
My first thought was, why did I get more?
Why didn't I get more? Depending on... Kayla likes gifts. Okay, good. How about some of the kids in the room? What do you guys think about when you get a gift? Happy? Simply put, right? Excited? Do you open them really slowly? Or do you...
Super fast.
Some kids, yeah. Sometimes it can go both. Like I was pretty, I think, careful at a certain age. I was very wanting to, I think we even saved our wrapping papers. Anybody saving wrapping paper at some point? We're not the only weirdos? Okay. Some wrapping paper is expensive, right? Yeah. It's like now everybody buys the cheap stuff that just falls apart practically, but... There's an anticipation, there's an excitement, there's a ooh, what is it, what's this going to be? And when you get those gifts, and there's sometimes the anticipation, actually research shows that the anticipation is is the peak right before you actually open. Then it becomes it's like buyer's remorse, right? Like when you go buy a car, you're excited, right? You sign, you drive away, and you're like, okay, and then it slowly goes downhill from there. But we're going to talk a little bit about gifts. Daniel, of course, had the gift of prophecy or interpreting of dreams too. I mean, you could throw that in there, but those are prophetic dreams. So he had a spiritual gift, and now that's just one of many gifts that are out there for us to have. And just in the same way that we get excited about those packages under a tree, or the gifts at the birthday party, or the little boxes that come to you and you get overwhelmed, right, in those moments. And so in the same way, we can have the same excitement as it comes to the things of God, right? I mean, that God created that excitement. God created that joy. That all of those things. He created the happiness. He created the anticipation. All of that stuff. Those are the things that he created. And so now, do we earnestly desire the gifts? The Bible talks about that. Do we earnestly desire them? I think it's 1 Corinthians that says, I don't want you to be ignorant of these things. I want you to know about these gifts. I don't want you to be ignorant about them. I want you to have them. Or is that Romans? One of the two. We'll cover that in just a second. So there is a need for spiritual gifts. And we're going to unpack Daniel 8. So we're going to kind of take a focused look on this specific prophecy in this chapter. And then we'll unpack it as we go along. And so, of course, the first 6 chapters of Daniel are a narrative, right? They're a historical account. I mean, you could read about the fall of, we talked about the fall of Israel, the fall of Jerusalem, right? Conquered by King Nebuchadnezzar, who was the king of the Babylonian Empire. Very good. And so, and then he, of course, there's multiple kings come down, and all of a sudden this new guy named Belshazzar is the king of Babylon. The next king, do you guys remember the next world power that takes over? The Medes and Persians, absolutely. Good job. Look at these Bible students. That's what we want to do, right? The Bible has chock full of history, chock full of archaeological evidence, so much good stuff. That aside, the first 6 chapters kind of bring that whole narrative to pass, right? You've got Daniel, ends with Daniel in the lion's den, right? With King, who was the king at the time? Huh? What? Darius, right? Okay. Just a little test there, see if you guys got me. You're like, we're still sad from the video. Okay. How many people are still a little bit trying to, yeah. Julius like, I'm still broken. I don't know what to do. Oh, it's funny. It's good stuff. Who was it? Was that you that said, you didn't do it, did you? You didn't do the video. Emily, you said that, right? Yeah, she's like, you didn't do it, did you? I'm like, you suggested the video. Anyway, so if you're really upset about it, you blame Emily. It's a good one. Anyway, okay. So that's the first 6 chapters. Boom, the narrative stops essentially, and it kind of backtracks now into a prophetic. And so now the last few chapters are all prophecy, and it's things to come, right? That's obviously what prophecy is. It's things yet to come. It's not things. Okay. So that's what we see here. Last week we talked about kind of an overarching look at what's going to happen in the end times. The times before the second coming of Jesus Christ. And now we're picking that up a couple years after that vision occurred. So just give you first 6 chapters, and then these next ones kind of backtrack a little bit. We're still back into the rule and reign of Babylon. Okay. All that to say is, let's take a look at just a couple of first verses here, and then we'll kind of get the setting here. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared to me, Daniel, after the one that appeared to me the first time. He's talking about chapter 7, right? That vision about the vision of the different beasts that rose up and all that stuff that we talked about last week. Okay, so he's saying this is the second vision that I had during this specific king's reign. Verse 2, I saw in the vision, and so it happened while I was looking that I was in Shushan, the citadel, which is in the province of Elam, and I saw in the vision that I was by the river Ulai. Okay? And then he gets into the vision. We'll pause for just a second. So Daniel was away probably on business. Remember, Daniel had a prominent role. At this point, does anybody remember how old he was? Do you guys remember my reference points? He's right around 90. So he's been serving God for a long time. Remember, he was taken to captivity probably his late teens. Okay? And so he's been in captivity a long time, right? Maybe he's in his early 20s, right? So a long time. And he's been faithful. There's nothing recorded about, now, Daniel was not flawless. He's a human being. But it's interesting to see that no moral flaw, like crazy failures or anything like that. He just kind of stayed faithful and true, and even in his old age, God had some more stuff for him. He wasn't done with Daniel. He has one of the more powerful end times prophecies coming up here. Anyway, so he's there, and if you can see on the screen kind of where we are, you can see Persia here. Now, remember, this is in the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, and I'm sorry, the reign of Belshazzar and Babylon, right? So this is before the Medes and Persians have even invaded, before Greece, of course, and way before Rome. So Persia is still a place, right? And you can see Media here, right? And so you can see Babylon, right? And that's the Babylonian Empire, okay, in the yellow, okay? And so that's kind of what's happening here. And so he is in Shushan, which is also known as Susa as well. Okay, so just to kind of give you an idea, it goes by both names. I think I actually have a picture here. Let me just pop through there. Yeah, this is pictures of today, of that place, right? So just a couple shots there of it. Sometimes we go through these things and go, oh yeah, it's a cute story. It's history. It's also history, right? So these are actual places, these are actual events, these are actual people that existed and things happened. So that being said, that's where he's at. And like I mentioned, we're at the 3rd year of Belshazzar, okay? And this is going to be right around 550 BC. Thereabouts. Yeah.
Babylon, Baghdad, right?
Babylon?
Yeah.
Is Baghdad, is the city of Baghdad? I don't think it's exactly that location. I'm sure it's probably right around there. There's going to be a new Babylon coming up. That they're going to reform that. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm not sure on that. So again, Shushan or Susa is located in modern-day Iran. Okay, so that's here. So that's where Daniel was in his vision, right? So he had the vision. He's there. I just kind of give you the setting here of what's going on, and remember, reminding that we backtracked. We're in the kingdom of Babylon right now, and those are some kind of cool. Isn't that beautiful? That's kind of cool, huh? Yeah. Right. Huh? Yeah, this is the remnants of it. Yeah. Archaeological finds are pretty cool, right? You guys do know that like archaeologists will have oftentimes taken the Bible and Scripture and gone off of different reference points in Scripture and people groups, and they just start digging, and sure enough, long years of work and even on mockery for people. Like, you're looking for a civilization that doesn't even exist. The Chaldeans never existed, and all of a sudden they find a potsherd there's a whole village here, and it's like, oh, Chaldeans. What's that? Yeah, Chaldeans. So they see it and they discover these places and people and groups and all of that stuff. It's pretty cool. Anyway, all right, so let's dig into the vision. That's the setting, right? So Daniel has this crazy vision, third year of the reign of King Belshazzar. Like I said, it's right around 550 BC, okay? And I saw, verse 3, then I lifted up my eyes, this is in the vision, and saw, and there standing beside the river was a ram, which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high. One was higher than the other, and the higher one came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward, northward, southward, so that no animal could withstand him, nor was there any that could deliver from his hand. And he did according to his will and became great. And I was considering, and suddenly a male goat from the west, across the surface of the whole earth without touching the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Then he came to the ram that had the 2 horns, which I had seen standing beside the river, and ran at him with furious power. And I saw him confronting the ram. He was moved with rage against him, attacked the ram, broke his 2 horns. There was no power in that ram to withstand him, but he cast him down to the ground and trampled him there, and there was no one who could deliver the ram out of his hand. Verse 8. Therefore the male goat grew very great. This is the second goat. Grew very great, but when he became strong, the large horn was broken. And in place of it, 4 notable ones came up towards the 4 winds of heaven. Out of one of them came a little horn, which grew exceedingly great towards the south, towards the east, the glorious land. And it came up to the host of heaven, and it came down, and it cast down some of the host and some of the stars to the ground and trampled them. He even exalted himself as high as the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifices were taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. Verse 12. Because of transgression, an army was given over to the horn to oppose the daily sacrifices. He cast truth to the ground, down to the ground. He did all this and prospered. Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another Holy One said to that certain one who was speaking, how long will the vision be concerning the daily sacrifices and the transgression of desolation, the giving of both the sanctuary and the host to be trampled underfoot? Verse 14, and he said to me, for 2,300 days, then the sanctuary will be cleansed. All right, so we read this, and as typical, visions are kind of strange. And if you've ever had a dream, they can get weird sometimes, right? Now, this is not just a dream. This is a vision that God has given to get Daniel's attention, right? And I've often wondered, okay, why visions? Why not just say, this is what's going to happen, and this is who's involved, and and this is when, and all that stuff, right? Visions sometimes can imprint into our brain a little more. Right? Picture speaks 1,000 words. Right? And sometimes a prophecy is meant, just like parables. Remember Jesus spoke in parables, and they kept asking, why don't you just plainly tell us? Just plainly tell us what's going on. And what was his reason for using parables? To weed out the true believers. He spoke parables to hide the truth, certain truths. Not the gospel. Good news is that's freely given. But there are certain truths that he doesn't withhold necessarily. They're just hidden for those that want to press in a little further. And then well, what did you mean when you said, and then they press in, and now they're really keyed in. Sometimes God wants to get our attention and key us into what he's doing and wake us up, right? Make us pay attention. And not just hear it and go, ooh, that was nice, and you go your own way. But instead, like, I got to do something with this. This was heavy. And actually, he ends up having this. Later on, he says, I was distraught, right? This last vision, we talked about that. He said he was sick. He was so, conflicted on what does this mean? And he wanted to press in. He's seeking, he's praying, and he's looking for... You see what happens there. And, and so there's an earnestness, there's an excitement that comes with that. So, we won't unpack the vision here because God ends up giving, God's awesome, he's going to give the interpretation as well. Okay? This is not going to be, me speaking my opinion kind of type thing. But let's just kind of look at the pieces here. You can see on the screen there. So we've got two different rams, right? Two goats. One's a two-horned ram, right? One horn's higher, and it's going westward, it's going northward, it's going southward. Okay? And that one's there, it's chilling, it's dominating, it's looking tough. Okay? Then there's another ram comes out quick, fast, out of the west, and it's got like one main horn. There's something that stood out, right? Kind of maybe this, this is an artist's, rendition of it. Maybe it looked like that, right? What's that?
It starts out as a
Yeah, unicorn,
unicorn.
right? So he's flying from the west, like not even touching the ground. That's how fast it is. Just whew. So something happened fast. It's a notable one horn, right? And then that horn is broken, right? That four horns pop up out of it. Kind of trippy, right? And then there's a little horn that comes up as well. And that horn's doing some damage there to... what does it talk about? It says that it goes towards the Holy Land, basically, right? And it's exalting thing. It says where am I at here? Yeah, exalting himself, right? Takes away the daily sacrifices. You start to think like, okay, this sounds like an actual person, right? And sometimes you might start thinking, well, this is the Antichrist that we talked about last chapter. And I was wrestling with that at first too, but we'll come to that in just a second. Okay. Let's continue on. Let me pause. Any questions at this point? Cool. All right. No worries. And then let's continue on verse 15. Okay. Then it happened, when I, Daniel, had seen the vision and was seeking the meaning, that suddenly there stood before me one having the appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of the Ulai, who called and said, Gabriel, make this man understand the vision. Ooh, so he sees this angel, who apparently is, what angel? Gabriel. Gabriel's like epic. He's like one of the archangel, pretty cool. But there's a voice, right? Possibly the voice of God, right? Anyway, speaking, saying, hey, help him understand. Church, we need understanding. And sometimes it's not, our human brains can't in and of ourselves always figure things out. We need revelation, okay? And that's okay. It's okay if you don't quite get it, right? You don't fully get it. That's okay. Stick with it. God is faithful. God is faithful. And angels are his ministering spirits. And oftentimes, when you have that aha moment, who knows? It might have been an angel. It's like, it's this, and you're like, yay, Anyway, all that to say is that's what's happening here. So, verse 17, he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid. I fell on my face that the vision, I fell on my face, but he said to me, understand, son of man, that the vision refers to the time of the end. These are things that are yet to come. Okay? Now, as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep with my face to the ground, so he basically, kind of like in his vision, passed out even. But he touched me, stood me upright, and he said, look, I am making known to you what will happen in the latter times of the indignation. For the appointed time, the end shall be. He's like, these are These are specific events and specific times and their different ends. The ram which you saw, here's the revelation. So he's going to speak this out. The ram which you saw having the two horns, they are kings of, what's your Bible say? Media and Persia. Oh, okay. There we go. The male goat is the kingdom of Greece. The large horn between the eyes is the first king. There we go. As for the broken horn and the four that stood up in its place, 4 kingdoms shall arise out of that nation, but not with its power. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors have reached their fullness, a king will arise. Well, let's pause. We're going to pause there. No, we're going to pause there. Okay. So the two-horned ram is clearly, it's a kingdom, right? It's the Medes and Persians. Now remember, when Daniel had this vision, who's in charge right now? Babylon. Babylon's in charge. Belshazzar is the king, okay? So this is it's a prophecy of this new force, this new world force that's coming in, right? And so that's this ram. This is the first ram that's pictured. And it says one horn's higher than the other. Persia was stronger than Media. They just had more might, in case you didn't know. What's that? More slaves? Oh. As a matter of fact, the national emblem of Persia was a ram. So, fun fact. Now, one horn was higher. Like I said, Persia was stronger than Media. And it talks about west. It was going to the west, the north, and the south. And that's where the Medes and Persians would end up conquering. Now, remember, this is prophesied before it actually happened. Okay, this is 550 BC. They were conquered in 538 by the Medes and Persians. Remember, Belshazzar's had the finger on the wall. You know, you've been weighed, you've been measured, you've been found wanting, right? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so that's what happens. And there's 3 different areas that he conquered. Like I mentioned, north, south, and west, north, and south. So he had the Scythians, the Greeks, and the Egyptians.
Oh, I was going to ask if the 4 little ones were Athens, Thebes, Corinth, and Sparta.
Oh. And there can be debate on these things, on some of that things, but it did their push did go that direction, okay? Because remember, they're coming from. I'm gonna go back to that. Remember, look where they're going. They're gonna go this way because this is the. I'm looking for my pointer. That's like there's some good land there, right? And so they're moving that direction, right, and into Egypt. So they're going boom, right? And that's where they were going. Anyway, all right. So we'll cover just the first part of the next time. So boom, that's it. So that's a whole other kingdom. And then there's another kingdom that's coming. He's prophesying 2 ahead, right? You guys remember the statue of Daniel chapter 2, right? We know that there's 4 main world powers coming. Well, this would be the 3rd one, right? Which is, what's the 3rd world power? Greece. Okay, so this ram comes in fast, boom, and that one horn says it's the first king, right? The first king would be Alexander the Great, right? And Alexander the Great basically beat basically beat the Medes and Persians in one decisive battle. It was the Battle of Gaugamela, 331 BC. And then he died later in like 323 BC. I think he was only 32 or something like that, 33 years old. He was young. But he started fighting like at 18 as a commander and just dominating. He was just dominating. Finally, he's like, we're strong enough, let's go. And he just went and took them out. And there was always animosity towards Macedonia and Greece and just towards the Medes and Persians. And so you can read about the tenacity of that. We read about it. It's going to be forceful. It's going to be crazy, right? And this is before Alexander was even born, right? This is hundreds of years before that. And so it talks about the way that they would conquer and from where and who it would be and that there'd be one main king and then that king would be broken, right? Killed. And so Alexander died and he had 4 generals. And those 4 generals decided, okay, well, let's just split the kingdom up into 4. The 4 small horns came up, and it says that there were those 4 areas. And so they divided the area up based on those generals. And so they had different areas. I think I even have it on there, do I? No, I didn't put the areas that they get that they're part of, right? Anyway, but yeah, that's the 4 other horns that came up. The kingdom was divided into 4 generals. Okay, and that's all historical. You guys can look that up, and it's exciting. I think it's super cool. So let's unpack this little horn here, though, because this is where it starts to get a little squirrely. We read this and we go, okay, look, this little horn, latter time, verse 23. In the latter time of their kingdom, whose kingdom? Alexander the Great's kingdom, which would be, as we would know, Greece. We'll call it Greece, right? The Greek Empire. In the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors have reached their fullness, a king will arise. So that's this little horn thing, right? There's going to be a new king that comes up. He's going to have fierce features, his characteristic, his personality is going to be fierce. He understands sinister schemes. His power will be mighty, but not by just his own power. He will destroy fearfully. He shall prosper and thrive. He shall destroy the mighty and also the holy people. Through his cunning, he shall cause deceit to prosper under his rule. And he shall exalt himself in his heart. He shall destroy many in their prosperity. He shall even rise against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without human means. And the vision of the evenings and mornings which was told is true. Therefore seal up the vision, for it refers to many days in the future. And I, Daniel, fainted and was sick for days. So he was actually ill after this vision. And I arose afterwards and went about the king's business. I was astonished by the vision. No one understood it. And he's still probably mulling. He was still mulling it over at this point. So let's unpack this. So when I first read this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the Antichrist. But wait, the Antichrist doesn't come with, because we talked about that last week, right? Remember we talked about the little horn. We think, oh, well, immediately my Western-minded brain is like, oh, little horn is the same character. It doesn't have to be, right? But anyway, this is going to be in the Greek Empire. Well, there was this. Does anybody know who Antiochus Epiphanes is? Good job. He's like, no, I don't, but I'm seeing some dots here. Yeah, and so Antiochus Epiphanes, and I just realized I didn't print out my notes on this, so I'm going to go from memory here. He was a crazy guy, right? He actually allowed, he was one of the, so they divided the 4 kingdoms, right? Those generals ended up dying, and then Seleucia, I believe, was kind of the area of Syria and Israel. That was like one of the quadrants of the Greek Empire, right? And so that it became kind of known as the Seleucian Empire. And so Antiochus, right? There was a whole generation. He was like the 4th, Antiochus the 4th, a.k.a. Antiochus Epiphanes, okay? So his brother or his dad, I can't remember, but he was in power, and he actually ended up murdering his brother. I think it was his brother. He ended up murdering him to take power, right? Dude was corrupt, right? So, which we've seen that throughout that's so much murder to become king. It's crazy, Anyway, so that happened. Now he's ruling over Israel, in a sense, right? He's kind of like the we'll call it regional governor. I don't know. He's in power there, and so he wants to. He got frustrated with the Jews because they would not fall in line with the culture. They would not assimilate into culture. It's like, why do you keep? What do you mean the Sabbath? We work every day. What do you mean the Sabbath? What do you mean one true God? What do you mean? God is over the king. No, we're the boss. And there was a tension there, and so he kept trying to pass laws, and he would change the laws, and he would force them to work on the Sabbath and try, and there was a resistance, and so he started throwing people in jail, and He's like, there's a high priest? You know what? I'm going to remove the high priest. Well, who's supposed to appoint the high priest? Remember, a high priest there's only one, and it was of the line of Aaron, and you don't get a new high priest until that guy's dead. That's how it's supposed to work. Okay, then there's a passing on, and there we go, right? And so he goes, no, I don't like this guy. And so if anybody's open to being a high priest, my checkbook's over, or you can leave your offering here. I'm speaking who knows what he said. But he took bribes. And then he got outbid. There was like a bidding war for like who's going to become high priest. It was a whole big mess. So he's making a mockery of the Jewish faith, right? And then all of a sudden he starts killing Jews. He starts killing Jews. He says, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't pray to these two guys, blah, blah, blah. He's trying to force them into the Greek culture. Church, this is a side note. We can see that the world doesn't like a free-thinking Christian. The world doesn't like an independent-minded person. There is a freight train moving right now of if you're not on board with this, and then you're going to get run over by us, right? And church, you need to know what the Bible teaches. You need to know why the Bible teaches it. You need to know what you believe and why you believe it. And we need to stand firm. Amen? We need to stand firm on the truth. Okay, so that's a side note there. But he was forcing. He's throwing him in prison. It was just an absolute mess. Now he ends up even to the point because they're still resisting the stubbornness of the Jewish people, and it's a good way in this case, right? And so he ends up taking a pig. Now, pigs to Jews, unclean animal. You don't even have we don't eat pork. We don't eat bacon. It's so sad, isn't it? So sad. But they don't. Unclean. If you touched a pig, you'd be unclean, and you would have to go through these steps to purify yourself. So Antiochus Epiphanes took this pig. He went into the temple. He wasn't even supposed to be in the temple, but he went in the temple. He brought a pig into the temple, sacrificed the pig at the altar, and sprinkled blood on it. You could see the anger, the fierceness, the sinister schemes of the murder and the bribery and the persecution and coming against the holy ones, right? And just all of that's happening here. This guy ends up desecrating the temple. They didn't have temple worship for years after this. Not until the Maccabean revolt. And that was against the Romans. I think that was December 25th, 165 BC. Don't quote me on that. It's right around there. Anyway, radically just decimated the temple there, and noteworthy, right? Very noteworthy there. And so that's the fulfillment of this little horn there, and is really a forerunner to the Antichrist, who we read last week that in those last 7 years of life, life on earth as we know it anyway, halfway through, the Antichrist is going to go into the temple and eradicate the worship, and he's going to declare, worship me. I am God in human form. I am your Messiah. And that's when the Jews are going to go, oh, the Jews at that time, Anyway, so he's a forerunner of the Antichrist. Pretty cool, huh? It's scary, kind of creepy, kind of weird. But it's good. I mean, it's good to know this, right? It's good to see these things and to know what's going on. And what's amazing to me is this was given to him while Babylon's in control. And Babylon remember the walls of Babylon? The city proper, right? They were how many feet thick? Do you remember? 20 feet thick? Huh? 2 chariots, because they could ride on the thing. They could ride on the wall, crazy, right? Crazy high. They were just like, nobody's going to conquer this. And God's like, look, just let you know, the Medes and Persians are coming. And even then, they're not going to be the end all. There's going to be another kingdom. And he talks about Alexander the Great, talks about Antiochus Epiphanes, all these powerful historic people that God prophesied that would happen. And here we are, right? We can look back and go, yeah, that's true. Oh, that happened. God's outside of time, guys. So don't trip out when you're not sure what's to come. God's got it. Anyway, so Daniel had the gift of a spiritual gift of prophecy, right? He had the spiritual. Oh, let me pause. Any questions on what we just covered? It's totally cool to ask. Anybody online, you can ask. Those are different regions of the Greek Empire. I had them in my notes, and for whatever reason, apparently I missed one paragraph when I copied them. So I'm a flawed person, so I can get that information to you, though. One was Seleucia. Yeah, yeah. It became known as the Seleucid Empire because there was a kind of a regular rotation. There's basically different thrones for each of them. And when that got divided, that's what made it more easy to be conquered by the Romans, because they were not unified, you know. Anyway, you could easily Google it. The four generals after Alexander the Great, and you could read that off, and they would say this general over this. So, okay. Any other questions?
Did you say that's like a foreshadowing of the times what's going on in this prophecy?
This prophecy was future at the time it was spoken to him, which covered up through 100 and something AD, right? And then the last part of, or the Antiochus Epiphanes, right? But that was in the Antiochus Epiphanes, that little horn, was a foreshadowing of what's to come. Because the Bible even talks about in the New Testament, says that there have been many antichrists, people that were antagonistic to that degree. It says that there's, and a lot of times with prophecy, there'll be a fulfillment, and then another fulfillment, and just that heart towards that has been that way, right? Even the Holocaust. I mean, what was going on there with Hitler, right? He was, a type of antichrist, where he coming strongly, vehemently against the Jews, right? And when we see those things, it's that same fueling of that same spirit is at work. That demonic activity really is what we're talking about here, right? It's against.
Antichrist is the anti-anointed one or anti-anointed ones. Whatever spirit is against them.
Bingo. It's whatever that same spirit is. It's not like it's just one time. It's always at work, waiting for an opportunity to strike, to build a force, to go after God's people. Ultimately, that's what it is. And at the end times, there's going to be a turning against the Jews. It's going to be a turning against Christians too. Anyways,
Think of like history repeating.
history repeats itself. There's a common, yeah, sure. Yeah.
So if we're talking about Antiochus Epiphanes, the last couple verses here, it says, he shall even rise against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without human means.
And that's in my notes, and I'm like, how did he die? I forget how he died. Does anybody know offhand?
Insanity and bowel disease.
Insanity and what?
And bowel disease.
Just disease of the bowels. That sounds familiar. So, meaning that he wasn't conquered and killed.
Right.
He died from natural means. We know, and we read. Remember when we read in Acts? You got it, buddy. When in Acts, remember King Herod came out, and he was. It was like a morning, and the sun was shining off of his clothes, and it was sparkling, and he's speaking, and he was addressing the Israelite people, and they're like, "It's the voice of a God," and he's like, "Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I am pretty awesome." And then God struck him right then and there, and he had worms eat him from the inside out, and his intestinal issues. Like God struck him, killed him, right? So natural means could mean that God smites him. So anyway, Antiochus Epiphanes died of not by war, basically, is what it's saying. Yeah. It's good. I like these questions.
I just realized this is all like 100 years after like the four great city-states of Greece. This was, because I was thinking like when Athens, Sparta all rallied together, and then Alexander came after that. So I just had my
You're
timeline about 100
There we go. Okay, I was wondering when you brought it up. I was like, I don't remember. Yeah, it's cool. Like with these history stuff. I used to hate history as a kid. Anybody hate history? I mean, it's the worst, right? It's just like, I remember that's the only class I've ever fallen asleep in, and I even had one time the drool. And you're like, oh my gosh, and it's like, anyway. But now it's like it's exciting to me, especially when you get into like biblical, and then how. Just like you're like, oh, dude, that lines up, and this was going on over here, and we can see all this happening. And guess who's over it all, guys? All that's happening, and all the men and women of the earth, and all the leaders, all thinking that they're handling. God supersedes all of it. God is in control. God's kingdom is eternal, right? And even though Antiochus Epiphanes was doing what he was doing, right? God dealt with that, right? Some people are actually, there's a whole discussion, there's common theories of like, why would God allow that for to happen to the Jews? That was like terrible, right? And so some people were believing that like because what they allowed to have happen with the high priest and the pagan worship combined with their irreverence towards the role of the high priest and letting the bribery happen and letting him do that God's like, you know what, you're done with this. You're done. I'm gonna let him desecrate the temple. You need to repent, right? And the Maccabees really was kind of a whole resurgence back to the truth. That's a whole other topic. Cool. I love it. Okay. Daniel had the spiritual gift of prophecy, right? Why do you think God gives gifts to his children like that? Spiritual gifts. Why? What's the point? To empower us, to spread the word.
Glorify him, it's going to direct to him.
Glorify God. He loves us. Bring us closer to him, okay?
So people will know what's to come.
So people will know what's to come, specifically prophecy. Yeah. But even also other gifts too. Like why else when he give them to his children?
To bolster our faith and to give reason to non-believers that see that followers of God are different.
Yeah. Remember now just to clarify, we're not when we say God giving a gift, we're not talking about somebody that's talented. We're not talking about, sometimes we would use the term, oh, that person's he's gifted, or she's gifted at that. Gifted violinist, gifted philosopher. Talented, we're not talking about human excellence. We're talking about supernatural gifts, not in a weird way, but the backing, the spirit behind it. These are spiritual gifts, right? These are supernatural gifts. Okay? Does that make sense? So these are not learned skills. These aren't something that somebody's just a natural at. This is above that even. This is a supernatural thing that happens only when they're born again. These are gifts of the Holy Spirit, specifically. We'll cover some of that in a second. Read Ephesians chapter 4, Romans chapter 12, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, right? These are the listings of the sections of the different gifts of the Spirit. And they are the gifts of the Spirit. Only God's kids are going to have these. And church, how do we become a God's kid? We need salvation. We need to be born again, right? So why do you think God gives to his children? I think you're absolutely right. There's one little piece that the Bible talks about, and it says, Ephesians chapter 4, verses 12 through 16, says it is for the equipping of the saints for the work of the ministry. Church, we're supposed to work. We got good works we're supposed to be doing. We don't just fill our brains up with a bunch of information. Okay? If you just fill up your information, you're just going to get puffed up, you're going to get prideful, you're going to start judging people. You guys know anybody Christians like that? Any churches like that? It happens, right? It's because we're not serving. Serving, I tell you, there's humility involved in that. It keeps you humble, keeps you understanding, right? It's good stuff. It says, it is for the equipping of the saints for the work of the ministry and for the edifying or the building up of the body of Christ. We need each other. We need each other. We need the gift of faith when we're discouraged. We need the gift of mercy when someone's broken. We need somebody and God builds. He's building that now in our church. If you guys aren't, I get the privilege of seeing you guys move and work. And even this week, hey, we need to have a prayer ministry. Yes, I've been praying for that. And so someone's got the gift to try to do that. Or we got hey, the gift of hospitality. I want to bake and make things, and you guys just eat, and let's just plan meals. I'm like, I have no desire to do that at all, but I love that you do, and we're blessed by it. Or somebody has the gift of this or that. It's a beautiful thing, and we're all encouraged by it. This is not the Pastor Tony show. We're one family. This is just my time now, and it's really our time, isn't it? Right? Let's unpack these things a little bit. What time is it? We didn't start our timer back here. Thank you. Well, we're good, right? We're good for another couple hours? You laugh. You're like, yeah. So there's a need for spiritual gifts. Look, here's the thing. I say need. There's a need. The reason I know there's a need for spiritual gifts is because they're spiritual gifts. God wouldn't have given something that didn't need. Okay? It was a game changer when Jesus rose again from the grave. Remember, he said, if I don't believe, I can't send what? God the Holy Spirit. He goes, and you need him. You need, also known as the helper. We need help. We need help. Some of you really need help. We got fingers pointing here. All right, so we do, right? Because we understand in part. We talked about this in the guys group. We can only understand in part. We start to get it, but we're looking in a mirror, and just even then it's like a get out of the shower and the mirrors are foggy and we kind of see our reflection. I don't know. We only understand. We need God's understanding. We need God's wisdom. We need the gifts of the Spirit to be exercised so that we can see God move. So many of us think that these are just different boxes. Like, well, I'll just pray and I'll just read my Bible and I'll go to church and therefore we're doing it. We're doing the Christian thing. Yes, but yet there's more to it than that, guys, right? Last Sunday we were all hanging out afterwards, right? And it was a beautiful time. I left full. Like, you can't explain it until you get filled, and you're just like, this is a good day. You know, and it's the fellowship, it's the prayer, it's the talking, it's the reflection, it's all of these different things. They're just little snapshots about what the beauty of having God move. And so we got Daniel that's getting this prophecy, and he goes and just shares it. It becomes something that we can reflect on now and go, wow, God's still moving. He's faithful. He's good. And he's talking to the Israelites who were enslaved at that time. They were in captivity anyway, right? In Babylon. Can't go to Jerusalem, can't go to their temple to worship. There's hope that comes about. And when we gather together and we encourage one another, we strengthen one another, we use the gifts that God's given us, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Prophecy, for example, you see on the top there, that reminds us that God is active, he's in control. You know, other spiritual gifts, you'll find the lists there if you wanted to jot those down. If you go to Ephesians chapter 4, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, or Romans chapter 12, those are the verses that talk about them. And there's some similarities in the different lists, but they're not identical lists. It tells me, I'm of the opinion, okay, I said those words on purpose, that they are not necessarily an exclusive list then. It's not like God spelled every little one of them out, and that's it, and I'm going to restate it here. It was kind of there, you know, so I mashed them all together to make this list, okay? Now, if you start to tell me I have the gift of, you know, I'm trying to think of something ridiculous. I have the gift of, you know, house cleaning. First off, I have just a gift of video game playing, you know. It's like, okay, do you have a spiritual gift of that? Come on. All that to say is, for sure, these are the ones that are listed. So for sure, these are the ones we're going to talk about. Talks about apostleship. We're not going to do a long story on each of these things. But I want you guys to know, because as the Bible says, I don't want you to be ignorant, is what the Bible says. I don't want you to not understand that these things exist. Because if we live our lives without literally using the gifts of God, that'd be like a roofer not using any tools. You're not going to get anything done. Right? The only evidence that you're a roofer is that it says it on your card. The only evidence that you're a Christian is because you said you are. Where's the supernatural moments? Right? You see what I'm saying, though? And I would say this, just a second, Drew. Our world needs to see evidence. Now, you're not doing it to give evidence. Just be who God's wired you to be. Use what he gave you to be used. And you will see, and people will see, God's real. And I want what they have. Yeah.
I was going to say, at least in my personal experience, like trying to go down the list and see if one of them fits you is often pretty fruitless. A lot of times it happens that something
Yeah.
and then it,
Yeah.
parents that way.
I appreciate you sharing that. So as we're kind of unpack these ever so slightly, which is not, we're basically at the end of this message here, but as I'm going through them, and you're going to kind of go, oh, okay, maybe I have that, maybe that's it, and that's okay to question that. Talk to God about it. It's not like God wants you to be in the dark. If I get a gift from my wife, I want her to know that I'm giving her a gift, and I want her to know where it is and what it is, and I'm going to talk to her. Where did you use it? Did you have the necklace that I put on? Oh, it looks nice. Yeah, you're right. It's not like God was like, there's a gift somewhere. I won't tell you what it is. You got to find it. It's not anyway. But it may reveal. Oftentimes, it will reveal itself. To Drew's point, a situation will happen, and it just kind of naturally comes out. We'll use the term naturally. It supernaturally comes out in a natural way. Can we say it that way? I was talking to Michaela last night too. Like we're chatting about like the songs and all that stuff, and I was like, I have the gift of pastoring and teaching. Right? It comes naturally to me. Like I enjoy it. I love this moment. Right? Like I love talking with people. I love questions. Right? And I love being there for people and shepherding and like that process. And I just don't have to think it. I don't have to try to do it. Matt, you and I have talked about that. Right? It's something in you. Your reaction is the right one, right? It's because you're hardwired that way from God. And then some people told me like, oh yeah, Pastor Tony, it's good to see you have the gift of leadership. I don't have the gift of leadership. Like that's me trying to stay organized, trying to go. Oh, what do I need to talk to so and so about this? And no. So we don't want it. Back to your point, then, is that sometimes we look at, do I fit in this? Do I fit in that? We're looking for a supernatural wiring on this, not a self-made, thing. Anyway. I shouldn't have had that second serving last night. All right, so apostleship, okay? Apostleship, so that's a term that some people, apostles, that was only for back then. No. So apostleship is being sent out. It's being sent out. We would use maybe we don't usually say apostle so and so. We call them church planters today. They're sent out and they plant a church. There it is. That's what they do. They're sent out. Apostleship. Pastoring. Now there are people that have the title pastor that don't have the spiritual gift of pastor in our culture. Okay, and that's not necessarily a fault on those people. It is a term that we use to recognize a position, right? I don't know that should have happened. I don't know when it happened, actually. It's a title, right? But I'm talking about the spiritual gift of pastoring. That's the shepherd. I like to use the word shepherd. What does a shepherd do? He's there. How are you doing? What's going on? And you can just tell, like he's alongside the people, right? In a supernatural way now, right? Again, these are all, yeah. We should, in some ways, have all of the gifts in some way. Like we should have those qualities, but the spiritual gift is something different. Okay, that's like supercharged, right? You guys get a car and it's got the supercharger. You ever drive with one of those things and it's just like, dude, that's different. Yeah, I've driven it fast, but that thing's supercharged and it screams when you push the pedal down, right? Anyway. Yeah. All right, so apostleship and pastoring, teaching. Teaching is just, expounding on things and pulling out different resources and connecting the dots and just kind of creating that something that's engaging and is able to be effective in the teaching, right? And so that's that thing. Evangelism, sharing the gospel. We're all called to make disciples. We're all called to share the gospel, right? And we're all called to teach in some ways, and we're all called to be there for people. Anyway, you see my points. So evangelism is going out and sharing the truth. You just have a desire for people to come and get saved and be on fire, and you want to go and talk to anybody, anywhere. You know people like that, and sometimes I'll throw you off because I'll be like, let's go talk to so-and-so. And you're like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, let's do it. Let's go, And so, and seeing people come to Christ is just exciting and passionate for you. And prophecy, we've talked about that. Sometimes it's things that are yet to come. Other times it's speaking what God is doing actively. It's a prophetic word of this is what God is in the process of doing, and this is where he's taking us, right? Think of the prophets or the prophetesses that had that spiritual gift. They had a position, prophet, right? And so they would speak. They'd be the voice piece, the mouthpiece of God, right? Pretty cool. The gift of ministry, so it's the administration, it's the organization aspect. This is where I'm the most deficient ever. And it's comical for how I try to stay on top of things. So the gift of ministry, it's so good because it's the connecting pieces and making everything function and flow, and everybody's communicating properly with each other, and they love Excel spreadsheets. Any Google Doc fans in here? Just like, oh, I love documents, and everything has to have a place. Well, something to consider. All right, exhortation. You're encouraging, you're exhorting somebody. You're just really, you're okay confronting somebody and encouraging them and to do the right thing or to stop doing the bad thing, right? This kind of person is like, we talk about he's called the son of encouragement in the Bible. Does anybody remember? Starts with the B. Barnabas. Yeah, it's good. I feel like I'm with my kids in class. Barnabas. Yeah, Barnabas is called the son of encouragement because he went and got Paul. Paul was ostracized because he murdered Christians or had him thrown in jail. Guy was right seeking him out, and Barnabas was the one that got Paul after he got saved. Right, turned to Jesus, and he's like, okay, look, let me talk to you, blah, blah, blah. He's like, let me work on this thing, Paul. We'll get you in the group because clearly you're a changed man, blah, blah, blah. And he was kind of encouraging him to do that, and he was called the son of encouragement. Anyway, there's a spiritual gift in that. He's like, that person, every time I talk to him, they're just so uplifting. Every conversation, it's amazing, right? Gift of giving. So, a gift of giving, they're talking financial. So that can be a spiritual gift. Now, don't you be thinking like, well, I don't have a spiritual gift, so I don't give. So we're talking about a supernatural giving, and it's just like it's like you just want to give, and like the more you give, the more you get. It's just like this is amazing. Like I just feel so filled with that. Leadership's another one. They just are. Man, I tell you, they can rally people together, and it's structured, and they just kind of naturally follow that person, and there's the gift of leadership, right? Gift of mercy. It's just they have a heart for the downtrodden. They have a heart for the person that's afflicted. Again, we are all supposed to have these things, elements of these things, but we're talking supernatural. They just gravitate towards mercy. I know some of you that have these certain gifts, and sometimes you see me looking at each other when they have these things, right? Because it shows. And by the way, to Drew's point earlier, it's like sometimes you're trying to think, do I fit in that box? Ask people around you. Which of these do I just kind of, and they go, you kidding me? It's this. Wisdom, okay? Too many of you think you have the gift of wisdom. Well, I think we are. I am. That one and discerning of spirits. I have discernment. Good, we're all supposed to have discernment. The gift is discerning of spirits. The gift is not the gift of discernment. Shocker. It's the gift of discerning of spirits. Read the word. Okay? That means you understand the spirit behind what's going on. That means it's a supernatural revelation of this is the power behind this issue. Yeah. What did I leave off on? Mercy. Wisdom. Yeah. So wisdom is it's like, man, just like an anchor, like a rudder on a ship, right? The keel, it's just steadfast, right? This person just always has, boom, a good insight, maybe a Bible verse to attach to that. It's just good. It's just sound, right? It's good stuff. Gift of healing, supernatural gift of healing. We're talking about praying for somebody and they get healed. Yes, that's a spiritual gift. Okay? Praise God, it's a spiritual gift. Right? I'm glad it exists. Miracles. Look, we went through the book of Acts. Whoa, there's a lot of stuff going on in there, man. A lot of cool miracles. We just celebrated the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Last I checked, that's a pretty darn big miracle. Kind of a big deal. We're still celebrating it. Right? Victory over death, right? So there's still also these working of miracles. The Bible talks about it. Paul had the working of miracles, right? Handkerchief? For those of you that know, you know. Discerning of spirits, we just talked about that one, right? You understand, so there could be maybe a movement going on or an argument that's happening or an ideal, a philosophy that's being presented, and you're like, dude, I see there is something behind this. And it's not like, ooh, I see bad behind this. No, I'm talking about it. You see a specific, like this is what's going on here, right? And oftentimes what to do about it, like good action steps. Gift of tongues, speaking in tongues. Speaking in tongues is a thing. Okay, the book of 1 Corinthians talks about how to do it rightly in a gathering together. It's a heavenly language. It's oftentimes in an unknown language. That's why there's a secondary gift to that. Interpretation of tongues. Otherwise, we're just all here babbling. Nobody knows what the heck's going on. It's all disorganized. And if you've been in a church that has it happen, it's like, it can become chaotic. And that's why Paul says, like, look, if somebody has a tongue, it's something to speak, and it's in an unknown language, let them speak. But then also, like, is there an interpreter? Anybody know what they're saying? And he goes, if there's no interpreter, okay, well then sit down. We're done. We're not going to go there. You know. Anyway, so these are the spiritual gifts that are listed in those three sections: Ephesians chapter 4, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, and Romans chapter 12. And again, it's for the building of our faith. It's for the equipping of the church to do the work of the ministry. Remember, the ministry is not just for a handful of people to do. If you're a born-again Christian and you're on Team Jesus, you got work to do. Jesus said, cast your burdens on me, right? Right? Come to me, all you are heavy laden, and I will give you. And then put your feet up and don't have to worry about anything and just watch TV. Is that what he said? He didn't say that. He says, take my yoke, a yoke, right? Plowing, work to do. Take my yoke. My yoke's light. You've been doing it your way and it's heavy. It sucks. I get confused, I get lost, and my lines go over, and I get tired, and I just lay down, I want to die. Okay, come to me. You're weary, you're heavy laden. Let's take that off. I set you free. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Okay, take a moment, breathe. You good? I'm good. Okay, take my yoke upon you. Okay, it fits me. Yeah, I designed it for you. Oh, cool. This isn't too bad. And I have this work for you to do. Oh, I can do that. As a matter of fact, check your backpack now. Oh, I'm jumping metaphors. I have the tools to do that. You do. I know. It's cool, huh? It is cool. I love you. I love you. You see, it's just a goofy little snapshot there, but that's kind of, that's what's going on here, right? We need to use these things. We need to discover them. If you don't know what your gifts are, you can't use what you don't know. Now, I mean, you may have been using them, just not aware of it, right? But you need to you owe it to not just yourself. You owe it to the body of Christ. Yeah.
Are we to earnestly desire the gifts? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. The Bible says, earnestly desire them and ask. Ask, Lord, bring it. The alternative is don't ask for them and then don't expect, like, we talked about, like, what is it last week? If you could have a superpower, what would it be, right? We all have a superpower. God gave us at least one gift. That's the promise. It's a gift of the Holy Spirit. So when the Holy Spirit comes into you, something comes alive. So how do we learn, discover, or grow in our gift? Well, this is our last question. We're done. What do we do? So, like, if this is real, it is. Since these are real, since these are out there, so wherever you're at on the discovery line, right? Whether you have not discovered or learned your gift, or you have kind of, I think maybe this, and how do I use it, or like, hey, I think I just need to grow in it. I'm rolling, but I need to really get into gear. How do we do that? How do we do those things, church? Lean in and listen. I like that. Pay attention. How has God used you in the past in these moments yeah.
Pray for guidance.
We can ask. Seek earnestly the gifts, right? Ask, and it'll be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Right? I feel like that's a Bible verse. Try it. Sure. I like it. We don't have to make it. You don't just sit there on your butt and say, the clouds will part and then he'll speak. I'll hear a voice speak. Maybe. Probably not. Dare I say that, right? I'll watch TV and the word will appear on a screen. Okay. I'll just kind of get the word when I just watch different things. I'll just hear that word more often. Okay, look. I'm more with you, Jalissa. Not as maybe my thinking. Like we pray, we seek, and then we just step out in faith. Okay, Lord, I'm gonna start serving. I'm gonna start going. I'm gonna just be alive. You just speak to me. I'm gonna pray over these things and just pray over them. And then you step out and test the waters. And you'll know if you feel like you're banging your head against a wall and it's just like, ugh, probably not that. Probably not a spiritual gift of whatever that is. Okay. What else? How else can we grow in them or learn and all that stuff?
My personal favorite is the annoying neighbor that goes and tries to ask. It's the passage where he goes over and he asks for bread or whatever, and he goes over there. The guy's like, "No, I'm asleep in bed with my kids." But because of his persistence, he gave him what he needed, not for himself, but for those that were visiting.
Yeah.
And it specifically says that at the end, how much more will he give the Holy Spirit? And I think
Yeah.
that there's a tendency in us to maybe grow weary of seeking. And
Yeah.
maybe there's a persistence that the Lord wants to see in our hearts, and diligence and commitment, and then the gifts that have a responsibility associated to them are then given to those that are persistent.
There is a correlation oftentimes, and it's almost a principle of a testing of your will or testing of your earnestness or your character. We've seen that oftentimes, right? Here I am again, Are you going to press in? Are you going to persistently press in? Or is it a one-off? Lord, give me all the things, blah, 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 amen. Ugh, whatever. And you're done. Or do you continually pray, right? Because really, the verse that I quoted, ask, seek, knock, right? It's the verbiage in that, in the original language. It's to be asking, to be seeking, right? To be able to find, right? Does that make sense? Like it's a perfect tense of to be doing that thing perpetually. Pursuit. I like that word. Thank you. I like the way you said it better. Pursue these things. Seek earnestly, as you mentioned earlier. Be steadfast. I love that word. And test those things, right?
Even the disciples had to wait. He said to go wait for power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's tested. I mean, there's a testing there, right, in that persistence. And it's almost like, so just stick with, really press in. Keep praying about that thing. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah. It's good. And then I would encourage you guys to start serving in it. Try those things out. And as you're serving, be praying about those things, right? Got VBS coming up. We've got helpers in the children's ministry. We have, I'd love to have greeters here, just saying hi. They're in their station as people are arriving, right before the first song, Hey, how you doing? Da, da, da. I love people it's not just me creating the thing, right? Or the leadership doing it. It's, you might have ideas and be like, what, have you ever thought about doing the homeless ministry? Great, I like it. Tell me more about it. What's your plan? Well, I don't know. Or maybe you have a plan. You just take some time and you figure that out. So just encourage you guys to press into the Lord in these things and to see what he has for you. And just like you see back to the book of Daniel, amazing gift that changed a nation, changed Nebuchadnezzar's life because he ends up coming to the Lord, right? Right? I mean, that was powerful. Being an example all through captivity of what it means to stay the course, to stay true to the Lord. Things that we can still glean from today, and he's just using the gift that God gave him. So church, use the gift God gave you. If you don't know what it is, discover it. If you have discovered it, grow in it. Use it. That's how you grow in it. You just use it. And then God guides you, right? Can't steer a parked car. How many analogies I've used today? It's way too many.